Hi everyone, my name's Titus, and today we're going to be setting up another AI perception system, but this time using the touch sensory configuration. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Okay, so starting off, we will first open up our custom controller class, and I'll choose open full blueprint here. What we need to do is we need to add the AI perception system as a component. Once you have that added, you can select it, and then in the details panel, there's a senses config. We can add one of the elements. For this demonstration, we're going to use the touch configuration. And we'll expand that out just to see the options. The detection by affiliation, you want to make sure everything is checked. And then for us, we're going to set the max age to be 5 seconds before we'll drive some different logic after that. Will basically expire. Once we have this set, we can now go into our enemy pawn, and then if you search for pawn, there is an AI controller class. You want to make sure that is set to use the same blueprint that you're using for your AI controller. In this case, it's BP enemy controller, which you can see at the top here. One other change that we're going to have to make is I'm going to be using some rotation tasks in the behavior tree. So if you search for rotate, we're going to have to switch off the orient rotation to movement, make sure that's not checked, and then the use controller desired rotation, make sure that is checked, and then you can adjust your rotation rate starting off. I'm going to be using 500 just as my baseline. All right, so we can compile and save. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to set up the perceptions stimulus. And in this case, we're going to be, since we're doing the touch configuration, it makes sense to put it in our player blueprint. So we'll do the third person blueprints, and we have the third person character here. Then I can go to the components and hit add, and then search for AI perception stimuli source. Once you've added it as a component, just select it, and then in the details panel on the right, you'll want to register it as a source for your particular system that you want it to use. So in my case, I'm going to be doing touch. Now that we have that set, we can go to the event graph, and we just need to code some logic that will actually trigger a report of a sensory touch. So we have a capsule component on this blueprint that we can use. If we right click, we can, we'll have to first select it in the components tree. And then if you right click, you'll have the add events for capsule component show up. And then under there is collision. And we can't really use the begin or end overlap because you'd have to adjust the, the collision settings to allow for an overlap. But what we can do is we can use the component hit, which is basically when two capsules, kind of rub up or bump each other. So for this demonstration, we can get away with that. So what we'll do is when it detects a hit, we'll want to do a simple check. So we can cast to our enemy pawn class. We'll pass in the other actor as the object to check. And then if it's true, we can report a touch event. And then for the touch receiver, that's going to be our enemy. And then the other actor, we can just simply get a reference to ourselves since this is the player blueprint. And then we just need to pop in a location. So if I just say get world location, we can use pretty much any of these, but for simplicity, I'm just going to use the capsule component. And then I'll move this over here like so. And this will pretty much round out all the player code that we're going to need to make this system work. Now the next thing we'll want to do is we've simply configured a stimulus in the player and a source in the enemy pawn, but we haven't coded any logic for it to do anything. So like if we play the map and like I go to the debug mode with single quotes and then press 4 and 5 to enter in the perception system, you'll notice that I am generating perception debug spheres here when I touch against my enemy pawn, but there's no logic or anything that's happening from that. So we'll still need to set that up. Also, if when we hit, we notice the camera goes all weird, we can fix that in the player character by selecting our camera boom and turning off the collision test. And then if we try that again, it shouldn't get all weird. Yeah, so that should work fine. Okay, but let's actually set up the logic to do something now. So what we can do is simply right click, and under artificial intelligence, we'll create a blackboard and a behavior tree. The blackboard we'll call bb_drone, and the behavior tree we will call bt_drone. Then if we open up the behavior tree, make sure your blackboard is selected. When it is, you'll have the option to toggle between the behavior tree and the blackboard in the top right corner. I'll head into the blackboard first, and we'll create our custom keys that we're going to be tracking. The first one will be a Boolean that we can maybe just call touched. The second one will be an object reference that we can call our point of interest. One thing we will change with this key is under the key type, there is a base class that's set to object. I'm actually just going to change that to actor because I'm only going to be populating actors as values for this reference, so that'll make it a little bit easier. And then for the last key, I will store a vector that I'll call target location. And this key type will have a default value. What I want to do is I want to rotate. Basically, when the player touches the AI, I want the AI to turn and look at the player for several seconds. And then after that, I want it to turn back and look where it was before. So to do that, we need that reference rotation point. So let's go back to our map. Let's see, it's currently looking off the distance here. So what I can do is hit the little add menu and search for a target point. I just simply drag out the target point like this, and then maybe I'll bump it up a smidge, and then we can just simply right click on the location and hit copy. And then if we go back into our behavior tree blackboard, you can right click and paste the value. Oops. And you'll notice it pops the value in for you. So we can save that, go back to the behavior tree, and now we can actually code out some simple logic. I think we'll pull off into a selector node that we can call our trunk. And then we'll use two branches, which will be our sequence nodes. The first one we'll call investigate, and the second one we'll call loiter. So the investigate branch, we want that to be protected with a Boolean check. So we'll right click and add a decorator. We'll use the type blackboard. We'll select that little blue entry, and the blackboard key we'll use will be the Boolean touched. And then for the observer reports, I want this to be both lower and upper, or basically self. So it'll basically reevaluate the entirety of the tree. And that'll kind of protect this branch. So this branch will only enter when something flips touch to true. And then what I can do is I can pull off into one of the predefined tasks. There's one that says rotate to face a blackboard entry. I can simply use this one. And the blackboard key, I'm going to use the point of interest, which is the interest object. And then if this all fails, we'll default into the loiter branch. And what we want to do on this one is we will rotate to face an entry, but the entry this time will be our target location, that vector. And then we can just tell it to wait maybe 5 seconds before reevaluating the tree. Now that we've created a simple logic tree, we just need to run it. So we can come back to our enemy controller, and then under the event graph, for the event begin play, we can pull off that and say run behavior tree. And the behavior tree will be the only one that we made, so we'll just select that. And that'll get the tree going. And now we can basically select the AI perception component, and you can right click and see all the custom events that are available for it. We're going to be using two. We'll use the perception forgotten, basically which is this max age. When this max age expires, it'll execute the code in forgotten. And then the other one is the perception updated. So we'll do the updated first. And what we'll do is right click, search for blackboard, scroll to the bottom, and you'll be able to choose the option for get blackboard. This only shows up if you are running the behavior tree. So if you're trying to do this from a different blueprint and it doesn't show up, you might want to add the behavior tree as a component or run it from that blueprint so you have access to that variable. Then we can pull off this and do set value as object. And we can pass the actor that it touches as the point of interest. And then we'll hook up the execution pins here. Now we need a key name, so we can pull off that and say just make literal name. And the key name is just the one that we created on the blackboard. So if we go back to the blackboard, that's going to be this one right here. Paste that in over there. Now the next thing we need to do, because this sets the point of interest to rotate to, but this doesn't actually change that boolean to enter that branch. So we'll want to get a reference to our blackboard, and this time we will set value as boolean. And it's very similar to the one we did before, so we're basically just going to set the bool value to true. We'll pull off make a literal. And the name you want to use is the name used in the blackboard, and this one I believe it was touched, which we can see is this one right here, touched. And then last but not least, we'll select the AI perception and then right click so we have that context window, and we will choose the option for perception forgotten. This one's going to have an issue and it's not going to work. We'll set it up just so we can see it. We're basically going to use the touched Boolean keyboard value and just duplicate it down here, but instead we're going to set it to false, and then we'll just pass that in like that. So now if we compile and save, there's going to be an issue with it. So if we bring up our system with our quotations and then 4 and 5 to enter in the perception system, we also have the AI and the behavior tree running as well. If I kind of bump into it, you'll see it turns, rotates to me. After 5 seconds, that debug sphere should go away, and the AI should return to the position it was looking at before, but it's not. And if I get rid of the perception system, and we can see in the behavior tree, we are stuck in the investigate sequence, rotating to face the player. So we're still in investigate. We're never leaving that trunk. And I can probably show that if I bring this up here. And let's go to the behavior tree. You can see this, basically the blackboard condition's not kind of setting to false. It's still set to true. And that's part of the issue that I was suspecting we're going to have. So the reason this is happening is because by default on this version of Unreal, the max age does not do anything unless you go to your project settings, and under the AI system, under engine, you'll want to check the box for forget stale actors. So now if we go back and play this once more, I'll bring up the perception system. Now if I walk in front of it, there's no sight, right? Like you can't see me. We're not using the hearing system, but if I bump into it, it's going to turn, look at me for a few seconds, and then it should return to what it's doing. So just like that. And if I touch it again, it basically resets the timer. And then you can, of course, combine this with other senses. You can set your dominant sense, but you can create some interesting AI systems with this framework. All right, good people, I think we'll cut it here, but I hope you found some informative value in this topic that you can take in your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.